Hello, everybody. I'm Liz Goodrich, Deschutes Public Library Community Relations team, and we're here today to chat with Jenny Pedersen about fake news and information literacy. She's going to be doing about a 20-minute slideshow, and I will be asking her some questions when she's finished. And we hope you enjoy it and take away some really good information today. So Jenny Pedersen has worked for Deschutes Public Library in a variety of roles since 2008. She is currently a community librarian with a focus on adult services at Downtown. Prior to working in libraries, she worked at newspapers and television news stations in Canada, England, and the US. She can't believe she waited so long to make the transition from the newsroom to the library, where she's been able to help one-on-one with their information needs and challenges, as well as talk endlessly about books. And a little personal note, Jenny is one of my favorite readers. We read a lot, same books, and there's nobody better to talk with about books than Jenny Pedersen, who I am now going to turn it over to. Jenny, take it away.
Thanks, Liz, and thanks to everybody watching. This is an important topic, even more so now in the age of the novel coronavirus. What I'm going to do in this presentation is talk about what fake news is and what it isn't. I'm going to give a brief overview of how the internet and social media have changed our relationships with information. I'm going to give you practical tools to assess information where you find it with examples. And then I'm going to share some credible resources for fact-checking information in general and information specifically about COVID-19. So what is fake news? The definition of fake news has changed over the past few years. We used to use the term to refer specifically to false or made-up information. Now, though, its meaning has widened to include misleading or inaccurate information, whether intentional, disinformation, or not, misinformation. What fake news is not is information that you don't agree with. Now, according to the American Library Association, information literacy is the ability of individuals to locate, evaluate, and use information effectively. Information literacy is now an important skill for us all to have because of the internet. Prior to the internet, for better or for worse, our information was filtered through gatekeepers, like the editors, fact checkers, copy editors seen in this photo. These multiple editors and fact checkers would vet news pieces before they went to print or air. Today, anyone can post anything at any time online, and we've lost a lot of that vetting, even at legitimate news organizations. So now, more than ever, it's important for you to know how to be your own editor. Information literacy skills have become even more crucial with the rise of social media. You can see from this graph that the sharing of fake news far outpaced real information during the 2016 election. Fake news has truly found its niche in these sharing platforms. It's easier to post fake news, to share it much more widely, and to get people to believe it. And we're going to look at why that is. One of the reasons social media and fake news work so well together is that article postings show you the story removed from its original website or publication. Remember Bat Boy? When you see outlandish stories in News of the World or the National Enquirer well in line at the grocery store, you know not to trust those sources. But when you see a bold headline on your news feed, you're not seeing that full context of where the story originated. So it will be much easier to believe. But before you share that story, follow it back to its source and do some detective work of your own. We're going to look at an example. So you're scrolling through your news feed and you see this headline. Oh, wow, the Pope's coughing and he's tested positive for COVID-19. Well, did he really? We have the URL for the site this story came from, so we can go there and take a look. Now, I don't know much about this site. It's called Making Comments Meaningful, and it's allegedly a Malaysian news site. There's not a lot of information about it. Most credible news sites will have an about page linked to from the top or the top masthead or the bottom footer of the page, sort of the black toolbars along the top and bottom of these two images. Now, this site has neither, which is a really big red flag. We also have no dateline on this story. We don't know when it was published, and there's no byline. We don't know who wrote it, so we can't check to see if that's a credible journalist. So those are also red flags. You can see in the second slide on this page, the advertising and the other stories, they don't look as obviously false as Bat Boy, but they also don't inspire a lot of confidence. Now I'm going to show you a great trick you can do with images on the internet. We can use Google Chrome to do a reverse image search on those pictures of the Pope coughing and see if they are current and actually related to this story. You need to open the picture in the Google Chrome browser. This won't work in any other browser. You're going to hover your mouse over the photo and click once with your right mouse button. An options menu will appear, and one of those options is search Google for image. You can then search back through the results and see where and when that photo actually originated. This would have worked really well for those photos that went around a few weeks ago showing dolphins in the canals of Venice. It turns out those dolphins weren't in Venice, they were in Sardinia. We can go deeper into this site and check the URL or web address associated with it. Speaking of URLs, you always want to check the domain of the web address. The domain is the last part after the second dot. Common domains include .edu for educational sites, .gov for government sites, and .com for commercial sites. Anybody can post a .com site. .org used to be really just for nonprofit organizations, but that's recently opened up a little bit, so do watch for those .org sites as well. You might also want to get familiar with your country codes. Google.ca would open the Canadian Google landing page. .ro is the Romanian country code, and .ru is Russia. So you really want to watch for those domains, as a lot of disinformation originates from both of those places. We are now going to use the whois.domaintools.com website to see where our MCM website is registered. So you can go to the Domain Tools website, type or paste the URL of the site you want to check into the search field and press enter. You're going to get a whole page of information about that site, but I'm interested in knowing where this URL is registered. And it's registered in Arizona, which is surprising for a Malaysian news site. I think we found enough red flags to seriously question the validity of this source. We would definitely want to do some more research before sharing this information. Now, that's a lot of work to do. And I'm going to show you a faster way to test stories and information you see in your social media. This is also going to apply to information that is shared in a post, like in these examples, not as linked to articles as in our previous example. So here we have two posts that are purporting to share authoritative information about staying safe from COVID-19. The first claims to be an information shared from Johns Hopkins University, which would be great, as that's a really credible health organization. There's a really simple way to test if they actually shared this information. Go to their website and see if they shared this information. And spoiler alert, they did not. In the second example, we have a much less tenuous source of information. Someone's uncle who allegedly worked at a Chinese hospital. So what do we do with this claim? We do what fact checkers and journalists do when presented with information. We see if we can corroborate it from any other source. To start, we could do a simple Google search. This would have worked for our Pope story as well, which would have brought up a lot of fact-checking sites debunking that story. Are any other news organizations reporting the same information? And better yet, with coronavirus information, go to known credible sites for health information, like the World Health Organization, the Centers for Disease Control, and the National Institutes of Health. We're going to shift gears a little bit now and talk about misinformation. Now, even legitimate news organizations make mistakes. And actually, another clue that a news organization is credible is that it admits its mistakes and runs corrections. I want you to be extra skeptical about information during a breaking news cycle, which is pretty much every day with the novel coronavirus. New information is coming at us fast, and things are changing daily and even hourly. There are so many news organizations out there now, and they all want to get the scoop. That pressure has many releasing information before it has been validated. In the case of the Boston Marathon bombing, CNN, the Associated Press, and Fox News all falsely reported that an arrest had been made when it had not. More troubling were the organizations that ran this picture, like the Boston Globe, alleging that police were searching for the two men shown. The police weren't looking for these two guys, and unfortunately, publishing their photo encouraged a lot of vigilantes to seek them out. Now, there's a whole subset of information literacy called data literacy. We all know that statistics can be used to tell whatever story the person sharing them wants them to. So do pay close attention to the numbers and charts and how they're being used. In the pie chart shown on the left, we can see that there might not be anything wrong with the polling data, but this is definitely not a good way to visualize that data. Note that all the pieces of the pie totaled should equal 100. And in the graph chart on the right, take a close look at the y-axis. The numbers are reversed from how you'd expect them to be, with 0 on the top rather than the bottom. How does that change your understanding of what happened after Florida enacted its stand your ground law? This graph makes it look like, this visualization makes it look like gun deaths decreased, but they actually increased. I'm going to talk really quickly about deep fakes. This is a relatively new and alarming trend to be aware of. Perhaps the most famous deep fake is the one shown here, where actor-director Jordan Peele created a video that appeared to show former President Barack Obama speaking. Technology exists that can fairly easily yield fabricated images and sounds that appear to be real. I'm not going to go into the details of how this happens, but do be aware that audio and video can now be manipulated to make it seem like someone said or did something they did not. If you want to see it in action, go to YouTube and find this video. It's a really great example and warning. Lastly, and most importantly, to talk about bias. We all have our own inherent biases. And confirmation bias means that we are more likely to believe information that supports our own core beliefs and dismiss information that contradicts them. Fake news is designed to provoke strong reactions by tapping into these biases. So it's important for us to know where our own weak spots are and just take a few breaths and assess when a headline agitates us. It has probably been designed to do that so that we share it. We're fighting against more than just our own inherent biases though. It's built into the software we use, the hardware we use, and the search engine results we click on. How we engage with the internet determines what results, search results, and stories we are shown. So it's really important for us to take steps to break out of these echo chambers. This website, allsides.com, is a really useful website for doing that. It takes the biggest news stories of the day and shows how different news organizations from across the spectrum have reported on it. So add this into your regular news cycle. Now, news organizations are made up of people also, and they do have biases as well. The media bias chart is constantly being updated, and it is a great place to come and check where the media you engage with sort of falls on that bias line. Where bias really shows up, though, is in editorials. Editorials are opinions. Reporting is facts. And it's important to know the difference between the reporting and the editorials in your chosen media. This is fairly easy to do in newspapers, which generally have a separate section for editorial content. It can be much harder to TV news, but this chart is a good place to start. I want to point out the difference between the 24/7 cable news channels and their network news counterparts. Notice that NBC News is near the top middle, yet MSNBC falls further down in the less reliable opinion strata and is farther to the left. Why is that? Well, siblings, these are distinct news operations. NBC Nightly News faces much tighter constraints. It has just 1 hour each day to present its news. So it will be much more selective and feature a much higher ratio of reporting content to editorial content. 24/7 news channels have a lot of air to fill. And the cheapest way to do that is with talking heads. That is people sharing opinions, not actual reporting, which takes time and is costly. We can see a similar difference between print news publications, which have very set space limitations, and online-only news sites, which don't. Now, the whole point of this presentation has been to share information literacy skills so you can become your own editors and fact checkers. But there are a lot of professionals who are doing this work already and sharing their findings with you. I encourage you to bookmark some or all of these sites and use them when you're unsure about something you've heard or read online. The sites on the left-hand side of this slide are great all-purpose fact checkers. Those on the right, I'm sharing specifically for you to find valid COVID-19 information. Of course, I work at the library. There's nothing we like better than compiling lists of good information, including books and online resources. We have several lists that can help you on this topic. You can find them by logging onto our catalog at www.deschuteslibrary.org. Click on Books, Movies, Music, then click on Catalog. Using the search bar at the top of the page, you can change the search by filter from keyword to list, and then search for the list titles as shown. That is the end of my presentation. I want to thank you for attending, and I hope you got something useful out of it.
Hey, thanks, Jenny. I got a couple of questions. Well, at least maybe one.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, in this age of social media, when people are posting without doing the checking, and your mom, let's say my mom, for example, posts something on her Facebook page that's clearly not right, and I take a few minutes to go a little deeper. Do you have any tips or suggestions on how you might address somebody who routinely is sharing not verified news?
Yeah, that's a really hard one. We all have those people in our news feeds that are fond of posting without checking. I would advise using tact. And there's a lot of great tips for communicating on difficult topics. A good one that I like to use is to sort of semi-agree with them at the start and say, I can see why you would think that, or I used to think that as well, but then I found out, so that it's less of just an attack and that there's a little more compassion with it.
Thank you. Well, I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. And Jenny, thank you as always for your expertise and your care and concern for information and news literacy. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.